Hello, everyone. Welcome to this series of tutorials on harness chaos engineering. My name is Shashank, and I'm the technical program manager here at Harness, responsible for driving chaos engineering adoption. In the today's training video, I will take you through the new feature of agentless approach for Kubernetes. So in today's video, we will talk about what all the prerequisites which are required to set up the agentless model, right? To run experiments on Kubernetes platform. We will also go through the step-by-step guidance on end-to-end flow, which will help you to do the setup, will help you create the discovery agent, the application map, and you can run your own chaos experiments. Now, with that, before we start, I would really like to touch upon what is agentless approach. So if you, as the name suggests, the agentless approach means here is whenever you want to conduct any chaos experiments onto your target machines, right? Uh, there are multiple ways to achieve that. In the previous version of our product, we were asking our customers and our partners to install the Kubernetes custom resource definitions, which we used to call them agents, and they were running on your clusters, right? And basically they were responsible for conducting those operations. Now once we have interacted with once we have seen the adoption of the platform, what we have understood from our other customers, that when it comes to scale, just imagine a scenario where you have thousands of Kubernetes clusters. It becomes really difficult to go into each cluster and install those agents. And also you would have to manage the life cycle of the agent. To solve that problem, we brought in the concept of agentless, where basically there is no need to install any Kubernetes custom resource definitions into your cluster, and Harness will automatically take care of running chaos experiments. So before we jump into the setup, I would basically like to cover the architecture of how it works. So with that, let me just quickly share my screen. So as you can see that you can find all of these documentations in our developer docs. These are public facing documentations. Just to navigate to the documentation, you can come to documentation section and click on chaos engineering, and then you can find the relevant documentations. Anyways, we are going to share this documentation with all of you. But in the meantime, let's just go on to the architecture. So as you can see, there is something called the centralized delegate approach. So what it means here is delegate is nothing but a harness resource. You can think of it as a worker process whose job is to take instructions from the control plane, which is harness SAS, and run and take those instructions and use connectors to run those instructions from the UI onto your target machines. So that's the job of a delegate. As you can see from the prerequisites, so when you are starting with the agentless model, the prerequisite here is the delegate must be installed into your environment, and we will cover that as well. And also you have to ensure that the network connectivity between the infrastructure where you are installing delegate and the target clusters, the network connectivity is there. Now with that, I'll just quickly go to a very high level network diagram, how it looks behind the scenes. So as you can see, there is a harness SAS control plane, which is sitting in the harness environment. And then we have the user environment, where in the centralized delegate model, what you will do is you will install the harness delegate into a centralized infra and will ensure that the delegate can do a TCP connection, all right? There is a network connectivity from centralized infra to those target machines. Okay. Now, the question here is how delegates does that communication? Delegates uses another harness resource called connectors to do that. And we will cover that as well, how to set up the connectors. So as you can see from the network diagram, delegate uses a Kubernetes connector to do that connection, and then the process starts. Now, as you can see in the network diagram, what you can see, there is a resource called harness chaos runners, right? And the purpose of these chaos runners is to do two things. The one is to do the discovery of your cluster so that we can understand how many services are part of your cluster. And the second thing is to run those chaos experiments. Okay. As you can see from the diagram, that these chaos runners are transient in nature. What it means is once the job is finished, the chaos runner will clean itself, right? And you will not be finding any more harness resources in your cluster. Okay. Now with that, we'll just go to the prerequisites. These prerequisites are nothing but role-based access that your platform admin team, right, or Kubernetes admin team needs to set up in the cluster. So if we go deeper into that, what is that we are asking here is create a service account and a service account secret. And then we have to create a role, right? And this role is for these chaos runners, as you can see from the diagram, right? So for harness to bring the chaos runners into a namespace, right, we would need that role. But there is one more thing I would like to add here is, as you can see that when it comes to the namespace, our recommendation is to create a dedicated namespace. As you can see in this example, we have created a dedicated namespace called harness delegate chaos in our target machines. The reason why we are asking you to create a dedicated namespace here is because, as you can see, that harness is bringing its own resources. So if you do not have a dedicated namespace, then there will be confusion among your teams that why harness resources are coming in your application namespaces. So to separate those two things, as part of best practice, our recommendation is to always create a dedicated namespace. Okay, so once these roles are set up, then we will talk about the connectors in a later phase. And then the next step here is we have to create a cluster role. This is again one of our recommendation. And the purpose of this cluster role, as you can see, the first level of permission is for discovery permissions, where we will go and do the discovery inside that cluster. And then there is a second set of permissions, which is for chaos. These permissions will be used by harness to run those chaos experiments. Now, moving further, now there are two more possibilities here. So the first thing here is, now let's say if you want harness to run chaos on all the namespaces, then the first option is you can create a cluster role binding, right? So that you have access to all the namespaces. Or if you want to onboard namespaces by namespace, right? You do not have to provide cluster role binding. Then the second option here is you can create a role binding and onboard a particular namespace where you want to conduct chaos. Okay. So once the role-based access, right? As you can see, there are three levels of permissions that we need. The first is service account and service account secret. Then there is a role for chaos runner. Then there is a cluster role. And then there is providing the role binding or cluster role binding based on your use case. Now with that, we will just go to the step-by-step guidance on the where we will cover the prerequisites, and we'll go to the connectors, and we'll show you the discovery agent, the application map, and how the chaos experiments can be executed. With that, I'll just go to my a test account. So here I am in the test account. So as you can see from the document, the first step here is nothing but the delegate must be installed within your infrastructure, right? So when you are logged into the harness, you can install delegate on project level, account level, or organization level. So before we go there, I'll just quickly cover what is the difference here. So if you go to account settings and you install any resource, right? Here you can see account level resources. You will find delegates, connectors, environments, and many other resources. So whatever you install at an account level, uh, it will all the teams who are onboarding onto Harness will have permission to use that resource, right? So account is more like a parent of the root, right? Where whatever you install or you create, all the teams will have access. The other concept here is organizations. Think of organizations are nothing but as your business units. So for example, you might have different business unit. There could be a platform business unit, right? There could be a component business unit, or there could be a centralized business unit. So if you go to organizations, right? So for example, let me go to some organizations, and you can see that in the organization settings also, we will have the similar kind of resources what we had in the account settings. So you can install connectors, delegates, everything at an org level as well. And then the next level is project level. Projects are nothing but your teams who will be using Harness, right, to run chaos engineering. Now, if you go to any project here, so for example, let me go to a project. You can see that in the project settings also, you will have a similar kind of resources, connectors, delegate. Now, as part of best practices, what we have seen is with our customers, mostly when it comes to delegates, delegates are installed at a organization level if you have a clear distinction of business units. If that is not the case, delegates are installed at an account level. So for this tutorial, what I will do here is I'll just go to account settings and I'll show you how you can install your delegate. So you click on the account settings, go to account level resources and click on the delegates. And here you will see an option of new delegate. So once you click on the delegate, here you will see two different options, Kubernetes and Docker. So for agentless chaos execution, we have to use Kubernetes delegate. Now there are three different options. There is Helm chart. There is Terraform Helm provider as well, if you use Terraform, or there is a plain simple Kubernetes manifest where Harness will give you the manifest. You can download this manifest and then you can place this manifest into your infrastructure where you want to install delegate, and you can use this command to apply and the delegate will be installed. So once the delegate is installed, you will see a status, connectivity status on your UI, right? As you can see here, my delegate is there and it is in the connected state. Now, once the delegate is installed, the second step here is we have to create connectors. As you can see from the diagram, delegate uses Kubernetes connector to connect to your target machine. So just going back to the Harness UI, and if we go to account settings again, there is an option to create connectors, right? So once you create your new connector, you can see different options. Out of this, the option that is relevant for agentless chaos execution is Kubernetes cluster. So we have to click on Kubernetes cluster, provide it a name. And in the continue section, you will see two different options to connect. The first option is specify master URL and credentials. The second option is assume the service account role. Now, since we are discussing the centralized delegate model, right, the option which is relevant for us is we have to use specify master URL and creds, right? What does this master URL means here? This is the URL of your cluster. How you can get this URL? There is an eye icon, and you can see that if you run this command kubectl cluster-info, you will be able to get the master URL. And then in the authentication, you have to choose service account and you have to provide service account token. Remember that this token should be base 64. decoded. All of these details have been specified in this documentation. So let me just walk you through that. As you can see, we are using the master URL, where a user has to provide the URL and a service account token. And the service account token mentioned in the document, this should be base64 decoded. So once that is done, then the connectors then the connectors are also ready. I'll just show you a quick connector that I already have. As you can see, there are like so many Kubernetes connectors which are already working here. Then the next step of the next step in the setup is, now we have to create the environments and infrastructure. Now, what is this environment and infrastructure and how we can create that? So as you can see, there is an environment section. You click on the environment, you create your new environment. So let's say I want to create a new environment for Agentless, and this is nothing but just a grouping type. So whether is this environment and infrastructure is a non-production environment or a production environment, you can use this in the future to build some custom dashboards, right? And that's why we have given that option. So you can create an environment. Now, once the environment is created, you click on the environment, and here you will see an option to create your infrastructure. Now, from the UI, you can see that for Kubernetes, we support AWS, Azure, GCP, VMware, and all the things, all the experiments related to these technical stacks are possible with the Kubernetes approach. So once we click on new infrastructure, uh, we have to click next. And once we click next, we have to provide the infra name. So let's say infra test. And in the deployment type, we will choose Kubernetes. And in the direct connection also, we'll choose Kubernetes. Now, as you remember, for the second step was to create connector. We will choose the connector that we created before. So I have chosen that connector and this namespace. Now, this namespace, you can provide your application namespace also, but what our recommendation would be, you provide the namespace which you created for harness, right, while doing the role-based access setup. So as you can see from the document, our recommendation was to create a dedicated namespace for harness. You can go ahead and provide this namespace as well. You can provide the namespace of your application also, right? That is up to you. But for this tutorial, I'm just providing a namespace. Now, once you create an infrastructure, you will get, how would you like to create an application map? You just close this screen and we will go through a different process on how to set up the discovery agents. So once you click cross, you can see that an infrastructure has been created. Now, once the infra is ready, the step 4 is nothing but to create a discovery agent. So for creating a discovery agent from the UI, we have to scroll to the left-hand bar and go to the project settings. In the project settings, you will see a resource called discovery agent. Just to call out, discovery agent currently is only available at a project level. So if you go to account settings, you will not find a concept of discovery agent. Similarly, if you go to organization settings, you will not find the concept of discovery agent. So for creating discovery agent, since discovery is specified for a particular project, so the discovery agents currently are only available at a project level. So in the project settings, you can see a discovery agent. We will click on this discovery agent. First, I'll show you the process on what all the details we need to fill, and then I will show you an existing discovery agent that we have already set up. Now, once you click on the new discovery agent, here you can see that you have to choose the environment which you created before, and then choose your infrastructure, right? Once the infrastructure, you have selected the infrastructure, you can provide the name, any name you can provide, that is up to you. And then again, the namespace. This namespace, The purpose of specifying a namespace here is, as you know that Harness is gonna bring its chaos runners. And the purpose of those runners is to do discovery and to run chaos engineering test. So that's why it is important for a user to specify where those harness resources will come into your cluster. And in this namespace also, you will provide the namespace which you created before, which you dedicated for harness. Going back to the documentation again, and you can see that our recommendation is to create a dedicated namespace, and you will provide that namespace here. Okay. So it can be anything. It could be an HC, it could be harness delegate chaos, it could be whatever namespace that you dedicate for harness. Then there are cron settings. You can change it, but by default, the discovery runs every 15 minutes. And then there is an optional setting to specify, uh, okay, while doing discovery, let's say if there are some of the namespaces which you do not want us to discover, then what you can do here is you can click on exclusion. By default, we include these Kubernetes namespaces, right? Kube system, public, node lease. You can add your application namespace accordingly. Okay. And then you have to enable the detect network trace connectivity. The purpose of this network trace is, which we will cover later. The purpose here is harness will identify if there is any traffic in the cluster at that time while the discovery is happening. Harness will also find the connection between services. This will help us in creating the network experiments automatically by using the agentless approach. Then, as you can see, there is a settings for service account, right? So since we created a service account before, right, with a secret, and that's what we use to create a connector, we would have to specify the service account name here, right? Why this is required? Because if you do not specify the service account, then the discovery agent will not know which service account to use, and they will use a default service account. And the default service account will not have the permissions in the cluster to do the discovery, to run chaos, right? So that is why you have to provide the service account which you have created. There are other settings which we will cover later, but just to give a quick overview, let's say if there is any security context, you can provide that as well, right? You can set a proxy. There is also an option for topologies. Okay. The other thing what I also want to specify, when you are setting up a discovery agent, there is a settings section, and here you can see there is an image registry. What it means here is, by default for harness, harness uses its own images, and these images are provided, are stored in the Docker repo, right? To do some discovery, right? To run chaos. So we are using those images. Now, the reason why we need to set this up, now, as an enterprise organization, you would definitely use your own artifact registry. That could be GitLab, that could be JFrog, that could be anything, right? So, so, so then the process here would be you would have to save the harness images into your registry, and you have to provide your own registry, right? So if I select private, you can see that here you will provide the registry of your JFrog or any registry that you use. It could be GitLab as well. So I'm just taking an example, right? This repository account is nothing but where these images are stored, right? Which folder. So let's say if your folder is, you have named your folder as harness chaos, then you will write as harness chaos. And inside this folder, all of your images which are required to run chaos engineering and do discovery will be present here. Now, what does this secret here means? So this secret is nothing but think of it like an image pool secret, right? And what we require here is a secret name. So as a user, you would have to go into your cluster and create a Kubernetes secret of Docker config and provide the name of your secret. Once you provide all these details, then harness will also have the access, right, to pull those images. Now, on the other side, if you are also using Docker and if it's a public repo and you are not worried about, right, you are okay to use Harness, you can directly go and use Harness images. Let me just click here, which is docker.io, Harness account, right? And you can directly consume them as well. Now with that, I'll just show you an existing discovery agent, how it looks like. So once the discovery agent is set up, it will take some time to do the discovery within 1 to 2 minutes. And after that, you will see the discovered resources and the dotted lines between them. These dotted lines will only show if there was a traffic running in your cluster. If there was no traffic, then of course, Harness won't be able to detect any traffic, but that's okay. But as you can see that all of the resources would be discovered, right? So once we have set up the discovery agent, the next step here is we have to create an application map. Now, for creating an application map, you can see that you click on the discovery agent, and then here you in the settings, you will see application map. Now, you click on the new application map. So let's say I provide a name, I confirm that, and now you can choose your namespace on which you want to run chaos and the namespaces for which and the services for which you want Harness to auto create experiments for you. So for example, in this demo, I will choose HC namespace and I can choose the service for which I want to run chaos. So as you can see from checkout service to cart service, there was a traffic flowing and Harness was able to identify that. All right. Once you create an application map, you can save this. As you can see, my application map Agentless chaos is created. It has 5 services. Now, before I go further, I just want to explain the concept of application map. So, so in your cluster, when you have done the discovery agents, right, you might be able to discover, let's say, 50 services or 100 services or 1,000 services. Now it becomes very crucial to give control to the application team or the DevOps team or the SRE teams, right? So that they can decide which services are critical for them and they have the ownership to create the chaos experiments, right? Or to monitor only those services which are important for them. So to solve that use case, we have given users a concept of application map where the application team can come to the platform. They can choose their own service, create their own maps, and start monitoring resilience and start running their chaos experiments. Now, once the application map is created, the next step here is we would have to create auto creation of experiments. And how to do that? We go to the application map from the left-hand side in the UI, and we will find our application map, which we have created before. We will click on that, and we can see the services that we have selected. Then we click on the chaos experiments, and here you will find different modes that Harness provides as of today, right? If you go for few, Harness will only create pod delete and network chaos for each service, moderate or maximum. In this case, I will choose a maximum mode. Once I have clicked this mode, I'll just quickly refresh my UI to see whether Harness has auto-created its experiments. And you can see that Harness has automatically created all of the experiments. And there is memory hog, there is CPU hog, and there is pod delete for currency service. There is also network related experiments because we were able to identify the traffic, right? And we have also created experiments for different services. So what you can see, we have created all the experiments for all these services, right? And that is what this agentless model provides you. The first advantage here is you do not have to install agents on each of the target machine, right? You do not have to manage the agent lifecycle. The third important aspect here is that Harness auto creates experiments for your team. So the team, whoever is starting new onto the chaos engineering, they get a head start, right? And they now what they just have to do, they just have to come to the platform and and tune these parameters accordingly, right? So for how long you want to run these chaos experiments, what should be my memory consumption, how many workers should I have, similarly for other experiments. Okay. Now, the question next here is, okay, now we have auto-created experiments. The next step, what user has to do here is they have to come and run this experiment. You can run these experiments also from here. But before doing that, there is another important step that we have to do. So as you can see from our environments, let me just quickly show you the environment which I already have. Right. As you can see that this infrastructure is connected with the connector, right? The chaos is enabled because the discovery is already set up. Now, what we have, as you can see that in this service account, whenever you create an infrastructure, by default, Harness provides a litmus service account. But if you run these experiments, right, if you run this experiment with this service account, it will not work because litmus service account does not have permission to run chaos engineering, right? It is the service account which you created during your prerequisites, right? It is this service account which has the permission. It could be whatever name that you decide. So what we have to do as a next step before we can start running chaos is we have to edit, and the namespace. This namespace is the same dedicated namespace that you created for Harness. Right? This could be any name. So whatever name you dedicate for Harness, if you dedicate Harness Chaos, this would be Harness Chaos. If you dedicate it test, this would be test. So whatever you do as part of these prerequisites, this is what the namespace we have to provide. And in the service account, we have to provide the service account which you created before and provided the role binding and cluster role permission to that service account. So in this demo, I will use this service account. Now, once these setups are done, you can come to the chaos experiments and you can start executing these experiments, right? So this is what end-to-end flow looks like. I'll just quickly recap. So the first step is you go to account settings, org settings, or project settings. Our recommendation is install delegate either on an account level or organization level. So you go to these settings. First step is install the delegate. Which delegate? You have to use Kubernetes delegate. Now in Kubernetes, there are three different options: Helm chart, Terraform, Kubernetes manifest. So depending upon your use case, you can choose anyone. But for simplicity, you can use Kubernetes manifest. You can directly download the YAML, put that YAML into your infrastructure where you want to install the delegate, apply this YAML, and the delegate will be installed. Once that is done, you can see the delegate connectivity on the UI. Now, the second step here is to create connectors. Again, our recommendation is you can create connectors on any level, accounts or projects or organizations, right? Our recommendation is you create it at organization or project level. But for this demo, I am doing it at an account level. So you click on the connectors, click a new connector, and you can select a Kubernetes connector here, right? Once you choose the Kubernetes connector, you click on continue, use the master URL, provide the master URL by running kubectl cluster info command. In the authentication, use service account and use the token, whatever you created in your prerequisites. And this should be base 64 decoded. Once the connector is done, the third step of the agentless model is you create your environments, right? As you can see, I have created an environment, and then you create your infrastructure. And once you click on new infrastructure, go to next, provide your name, select deployment type, Kubernetes, direct connection Kubernetes, provide the connector that you created before. This namespace can be any namespace, but our recommendation is use the dedicated namespace that you created before for Harness. Once you have created the connector, that is step number 3, right? I mean, once you have created the infrastructure, that is step number 3 by using connectors. Then the step 4 is you go to project settings and click on the discovery agent and set up the discovery. Once you do the discovery agent setup, right, harness would be able to discover all the resources. Once the discovery agent settings is enabled, what we have to do is create an application map, right? So you click on the discovery agent, go to application map, create an application map and select the services for which you want to run chaos. As you can see, I have created agentless chaos for this demo. And once the application map is ready, the step 6 here is go to application map from the left hand side. You click on the experiment, you click on the application map which you created before, right? And here you will see an option of chaos experiments. And this chaos experiments, currently we have already created, or we have already clicked on the flow. So it has already created experiments. But in your screen, you will get an option to choose between what kind of experiments that you want to create. And once you click that, harness will auto create experiments for you. Then the final step here is the environment which you created before. So let me just take a demo environment here. Once you set up the discovery agent, this chaos would be enabled, and you go to the three dots, edit this, and provide the namespace which you dedicated for harness and the service account. So why this service account is required? Because this service account has the permission to run chaos experiments, right? It can be any name, right? Because when we go to this prerequisites, what we are asking, the first step here is you have to create a service account. Then you have to create a secret, and then create role and role bindings. Okay. So with that, we have finished the end-to-end workflow on how to set up the agentless chaos discovery agent and execution on Kubernetes platform. Stay tuned for more training videos. And please share your feedback on how best we can help here. Thank you.